Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gianna if you're new, and this is the McDonald Chronicles, where we talk all about books. Today we're going to be diving into my July TBR, or my to be read list. So I worked really hard to try and slim it down just a little bit because it's really tempting to pick 12 books, which we all know is just impractical. And if you've seen my reading slum video, you know that I'm really trying to get away from looking at reading as a number of books that I'm reading each year and just sort of picking quality books instead and really focusing on the quality, not the quantity of the books that I've read. So even though it's super tempting to try and pick out as many books as possible that I want to read in the month of July, I am really trying to be realistic here, so I just have a few that I'm going to read. If you've seen my 3-book method video, you'll know that I'm reading one stiff book, one moderate book, and then one easier for fun read. So I'll sort of go into those categories and talk to you about what I plan to read this month for each of the categories, and then we'll go from there. So first and foremost, I'm sort of doing a 4-book method right now. So I am going to continue to read Charlotte Mason's Philosophy of Education. My goal is to really try and read 3 pages a day. Obviously life happens and that might not work out that way, but I really want to strive to just kind of before bed, just read 3 pages and then get into the For Funsies book. And I think that will help me continue to pick that up without it feeling way too overwhelming. And next is my stiff read. So my stiff read doesn't necessarily, ideally the stiff read would be something that is really challenging to get through. For myself, to make it easy to stay within those parameters, I'm using a nonfiction book that I'm currently reading as my stiff read. For the month of July, I actually just picked this up at my library. I've seen this a lot and I wanted to read it. I read before my first was born, what is it called? Bringing Up Baby, or I think it's supposed to be like Bebe, Bringing Up Baby by Pamela Druckman. She is an American, I believe. Yeah, she's an American, and I believe she's married to a British person, and they live in Paris, or lived in Paris at the time of her writing this book. And they talk all about just sort of how French parenting is different from American parenting and different lessons you can learn from the French. One of the things she talks about in that book is how the French kids will eat just about anything, or at least what she's observed, right? This is a huge generalization. At least what she's observed, there's a lot less arguments about different types of food. And so I have young kids, and as you know, sometimes it can be a challenge to get them to eat things, despite our best efforts, right? And so I thought this would be really interesting to read. I've seen it around and it has been on my radar, and I went to a new library today actually, and I saw it and I immediately grabbed it. So this is called French Kids Eat Everything: How Our Family Moved to France, Cured Picky Eating, Banned Snacking, and Discovered 10 Simple Rules for Raising Happy, Healthy Eaters. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is totally a tangent, so fast forward like a minute if you don't care. But the snacking, I didn't even know that was on there. We have recently banned snacking in our house. So it's breakfast, it's lunch, there's a little snack, and then dinner. But there's no like random snacking throughout the day. If we go out between breakfast and lunch, I don't bring a granola bar anymore. And it has significantly decreased the amount of fights we've had over like eating actual meals. I'm very excited to read this now because I feel like knowing that that has worked and then talking about this too, I think this will be really good. So I'll let you know how this is in my July wrap up. So that's for the nonfiction. I don't anticipate getting through more than one nonfiction in the month of July. If I do, I'm sure I have something else on my shelf that I can read, or maybe I'll just focus on the Philosophy of Education. I'm not going to pick 2 nonfiction for July. I feel like that would be too much. But yeah, I think 1 nonfiction for the month of July is totally doable and very reasonable. Next is my moderate read. So again, I talked about how my moderate read, I really wanted it to be books from the Well-Educated Mind. So I'm currently working my way through that book and through that book list. I say working my way through and I've done 1, but that's okay. Everyone starts somewhere. So I just finished Don Quixote, which means that the next book on the list is Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. This, for some reason, has been really hard to come by from my libraries. I have a library card right now at 3 different libraries, and I think only 1 of them had it, and the other 2 had it, but it was an updated version written by someone else. I didn't even realize it. I had taken it out from one library, and essentially the synopsis of the book said, Pilgrim's Progress is a really hard book to read, so we have rewritten it to make it easier to understand. And on the one hand, I appreciate that they're trying to make a classical, more challenging text more accessible. On the other hand, I'm kind of like, Should we be dumbing down great literature? I don't know. This apparently is the TBR full of tangents, because I remember in high school having to read Shakespeare, and I purposely bought it's called No Fear Shakespeare. And I bought them for every single Shakespeare book I had to read. And I did not read the actual Shakespeare part. I read the dumbed down version. As a result, as an adult, I don't like Shakespeare. And I really think part of that is because I never gave it the true chance, and I never practiced reading it, right? Like something like Shakespeare or something like a older novel, it's kind of a muscle that you have to develop. And if you're constantly reading the ones that are dumbing it down, you're never going to develop that muscle. As an adult, Shakespeare is on my list to try and read again, but it's going to be more challenging for me because I never gave it a shot. I never actually tried to read it, versus someone who tried to read it and stuck through it and really tried to understand what was happening. So I did not want to read the easier version of Pilgrim's Progress. Maybe that's something I can read after the fact, after I read the initial one, after I read the original version, if I'm struggling to understand it. But I did find one of the libraries had a collection of the Harvard Classics. And so inside the Harvard Classics is the original Pilgrim's Progress. So I'll take it. I'll be reading Pilgrim's Progress from inside of one of the Harvard Classics. You know, I saw like a stack of Harvard Classics at a book sale once at the library. It wasn't all of them. It was like maybe a stack of 5. And I thought, oh, those might be nice to have. But then at the same time, it's kind of like, maybe I just want the original books. But maybe that would be something to be, I mean, they do look very pretty. So I don't know. But so I have this one. This one has Pilgrim's Progress and the Lives of John Donne and George Herbert in it as well. I don't know anything about the second book. I know very little about Pilgrim's Progress as well. It's next to my list. So this one, I breathed a sigh of relief when I saw that it was only, I think it's like 320 pages, which seems much more manageable than the 1,000 that Don Quixote was. Again, not hating on Don Quixote. It was just a very, very long book. I'm not 100% sure what Pilgrim's Progress is about. I haven't read the synopsis, but from what I can gather, it is, and this book doesn't have the synopsis, but I believe it follows a Christian man on some sort of journey. I'm not exactly sure, but that is my understanding of it thus far. So I'm sure I won't finish this in the month of July. The intention is not to finish this one in the month of July. The intention is just to start it and hopefully make some good progress. All right, and then for my easy reads, my funsy reads, these are much harder for me to pick because I have to really narrow it down. So I'm limiting myself to 3 or 5. It's 3 that I'm going to show you now. One of them being the Emily Wilde series is kind of number 4, but full disclosure, it's still June when I'm filming this, and I only have books 6, 7, and 8 left. And the speed in which I have gone through books 1 through 5, I highly anticipate I will be done with 6, 7, and 8 before July even starts. So that's really next on my radar, but I don't even think those will make it into July. And then I also have a book club book that I'll be reading in July, which I'll talk about in my July wrap up. I don't know what that is yet. I don't find out what it is until I get to book club. It will be some sort of mystery and thriller, but I don't know. So the first book on my list I'm going to put on my July TBR is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Last year, I believe it was last year, I started reading through the Cosmere, which is Brandon Sanderson's like list of books, but in a specific order. It's like this world that he's created. So I read the Mistborn series, I read Elantris, I read The Way of Kings, and I really, really want to read Words of Radiance. But in order to do that first, I need to read Warbreaker. And I feel like this is loose. Like, I feel like if you read Way of Kings, went right into Words of Radiance, I don't necessarily feel like anything bad would happen. But I think the reason this is done is to sort of add more to your reading and potentially not give away anything else in certain books. So I thoroughly enjoyed every single Brandon Sanderson that I have read. I'm very much looking forward to reading this. I just haven't picked it up yet. And to be 100% honest with you, one of the reasons why I'm not looking forward to reading this is I just don't like when books are this size. And this is the only copy that we could find when we purchased it. And I just, for some reason, this size of books is just not enjoyable for me to read. I might switch off between the audio and this because I just can't do it. But it is considered to be a standalone novel of the Cosmere universe shared by the Stormlight Archive, which is Way of Kings, Words of Radiance, etc., and the Mistborn saga. So it's like in between those two, I guess. So it looks like we are following a princess who is going into who is exiled. I think I can't tell if she was exiled or the royal family, like if her family was exiled or if the family she married into was exiled. I'm not exactly sure, but it just says the city and the marriage are not at all what she expected. Arriving to Tellier, she finds both the city and the marriage are not at all what she expected. Her only ally is Lightsong, a god who is skeptical of his own divinity, who fears that war with Idris is inevitable. Meanwhile, another new arrival into Tellier, one who bears the sentient sword Nightblood, makes cunning plans based on the unique magic of Hallandren, which uses color to focus the power of breath, plans that could change the world. I have no idea. One of the things I really love about Sanderson is he just develops this whole world. Like, to me, he's one of the great authors of our time because there are so few people who can do this very well. And so far, every book that I've read, right, the Cosmere is one whole world, but really, like, the Mistborn saga is one piece, and then the Stormlight Archive is another piece. And then this is a whole new world. It's like a whole new world, a whole new magic system that he just creates. And he does it so well, and he's so detailed about it, which is just, I mean, even if you don't like fantasy books and you don't necessarily tried Sanderson, you don't enjoy it, I think you can at least appreciate how skilled he is as an author. So I'm very much looking forward to reading this. And then the next two are actually just random pickups that I found at the library today. The second one I'm incredibly excited about. The first is Glory B. This is the first book in a new series where Glory is an amateur detective and it takes place in Louisiana. I love amateur detective stories. That is like probably my sweet spot in reading. Any amateur detective story I usually just love. I think they're a great time, and I've never heard of this one or this author, so I was excited to find this. This might be a new series. I love finding a new series that I just love. I love series, so hopefully this is a good one. I don't know if any others have been written yet. I know this is the first. It doesn't say that any others have. When was this published? Yeah, this is published in 2023, so hopefully we're good here. My camera just died. Well, in my camera, I mean my phone. All right, and last on the list is Rivers of London. I don't know much about this book, but what drew me to this book was this little blurby on the cover that says, "What would happen if Harry Potter grew up and joined the fuzz?" I love Harry Potter, and so I feel like this is a grown-up version of it. Based on the synopsis, it seems like there is this cop who somehow ends up entangled working for a wizard. I've never read anything like that before, so I think that sounds like a lot of fun. So I'm curious to see how this one turns out. And that is it. Those are the books that I would like to read this July. Make sure that you are subscribed so you can catch my July wrap-up video and see which books I read, which books were worth it, and if any other books snuck their way into my July reading month. Thank you so much for being here. Now go outside, touch some grass, read a book. The internet will be here when you get back. Cheers.